You bring something up to him, not everything, not every issue you have, something really specific, and suddenly you're the problem, right? You expect me to be perfect. Nothing I ever do is good enough for you. God, you're always criticizing me. Now you're explaining yourself. You're defending your expectations and kind of backtracking, softening what you said. And honestly, the original issue is gone. I'm going to break down these phrases that turn accountability into a problem and tell you what they're actually doing in the moment and how they shift the behavior onto you, which is exactly what these abusive men want. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach, author of 5 books, including the recent Coming Back to You. You can work with me in one-on-one sessions or in my group coaching programs. But on this channel, I expose what these abusive men are doing so that women can recognize the patterns and get themselves out. I'm going to go through each of these phrases and break down exactly what he's doing. But first, generally speaking, right, you bring up a behavior and he's going to reframe it as some kind of character judgment, right? Now, it's not about what he did. It's about how you see him, right? Why you're treating him like he's such a bad person. But that's how he responds, right? And that shift, it pulls you into a defensive place. He knows that this works because here you are clarifying what you meant and you move off of the original issue. He's avoiding having to address it, and that's the point. The first one might be the most cliche, which is, you expect me to be perfect, right? You ask him to change something, and he frames that as perfection. It immediately becomes your standard is outrageous. Your expectation is so extreme, but it raises the bar in a really artificial way. He does this so that anything reasonable immediately becomes unreasonable, right? And then you feel like you've asked for too much, so you start scaling it down, right? You kind of reduce the ask and change what you actually want, but he's lowering the standard while never saying that directly. This tactic works so well. The amount of women that tell me this exact phrase, you expect me to be perfect, and I know I heard it in my relationship too. Now, the next one is, nothing I ever do is good enough for you. This is when he takes one issue, just one thing that happened that you're bringing up, and he makes it this global issue. You're positioned as impossible to please. And it really feeds into that trope, right? That women are always asking for too much and they're so impossible. Your expectations become ridiculous. Your feedback is constant criticism. And your standards are just unrealistic, right? So you start listing all the things that he does right? And he can actually be very overt and say that or not. But when you have this like, nothing I ever do is good enough for you, fine, I do everything wrong. Okay, so now you want to step in and go, well, no, you did X right and Y right and listing all these things. And now you're gassing him up when he's just done something wrong. Here you are reassuring him and proving that you're appreciative of the things that he does. And now, where's the issue? Dropped. You're not bringing it up anymore. And he gets to keep his behavior unchanged. He was awful and he got reassurance. He is literally being rewarded for continuing his bad behavior. One of the more overt ways that might even show up, because you see this a lot, is when he's like,
oh, so I'm a piece of crap? Oh, so I'm the problem? I'm always wrong?
This all feeds into the same narrative. Now, my next point, which is so infuriating because it feeds into a lot of stereotypes about women trying to change men. And this is when he says, you're trying to change me. You name a behavior, something that hurts you, and then he tells you that you're controlling, right? And this is something that is so interesting because, yes, he's calling you a name, controlling, but actually controlling is kind of an identity, right? He doesn't act like it's just a behavior. That's something you're doing. It's like you are controlling. He's speaking broadly. And a lot of these men will just overtly say, this is who I am, as if you're supposed to expect that from them and honestly just accept bad behavior, accept the abuse. This is who I am. Okay, that's not good, Steve. That's terrible. Now, I had a relationship once that was not abusive, but the relationship ended when he said, I'm just not the kind of person that talks about these kind of things. I'm just never going to be that person. Take it or leave it. And I remember looking him dead in his face and I said, I'm going to leave it, because I was done at that point being the kind of person that tried to convince someone to listen to me. If you're the kind of person that does not talk about problems to create solutions, you're the kind of person that sweeps problems under the rug, we're done here. There's no further conversation. But when you're in an abusive relationship, that's incredibly hard to ditch that relationship. You can't just walk away when you're in the midst of it, especially when he's framing you as the problem. You're trying to change him. What is wrong with you that you can't just accept it? He makes you feel like you're asking for way too much. So you start to question, like, am I being accepting enough? Do I need to accept who he is? Everyone has flaws. And that's why, in a very covert way, right? This doesn't always appear so angrily, right? I just have different standards than you. I'm just a little messy. Sometimes I just get a little stressed out. Everybody has flaws. Nobody's perfect, right? I'm not trying to change you, but yet he is, in fact, trying to change you. He's trying to change you into someone who tolerates abuse. But when he tells you that you're trying to change him, you lower your standards. And honestly, his behavior becomes so protected at that point. Now, this is a perfect segue into the next one, which is you don't accept me, because he links acceptance to tolerance. That's the same thing, right? If you accepted him, you would just tolerate all of his bad behavior. You shouldn't challenge him. If you challenge him, you don't accept him. And that puts you in a bind. You want to be accepting. Who doesn't, right? We want to be accepting and loving towards our partners. And again, nobody's perfect. But abuse is not something we should expect. That's not something that we should just go, okay, well, I'm with an abuser, can't change him. That would be wrong. Of course not. And it's not lost on me that in particular, women are taught to be accepting and forgiving and kind and endlessly okay with this behavior, right? We're the neck that turns the head, right? We have to guide him. All of this puts it on the woman to be accepting of his horrible behavior. And I find it really interesting that these abusive relationships don't start with abuse. They start with kindness. So interestingly, you did enter the relationship on the pretense that he would be treating you well. Obviously, no one's perfect, right? There's truth to this. We should accept our partners. We shouldn't try to change people. He's using these statements that have shreds of truth in them, but he's doing it to justify abuse, not regular, healthy, or normal personality traits. You can accept that your husband tells bad jokes. You can accept that your wife laughs too loud. You could even accept that he always leaves his coffee spoon out by the coffee maker. You can accept these things. Abuse is not something that you should accept. I would argue that's not something you should try to change, however, insofar as what you need to change is the man, not try to change him. Leave the man. He wants acceptance to be redefined as your silence. Tell me in the comments what ways he got you to just accept him for who he is. But I'm allowed to make mistakes is the last one that I want to cover, because he frames this whole pattern as a one-time slip, right? It's just a mistake. He screamed at you. That's not a mistake. He called you names. That's a choice. It's interesting because I was conducting an interview with a therapist named Stephen Ng, who's worked with domestic abusers for so long, decades. And something that he said that was so accurate was he asks people, what is the cause of domestic violence? And people are like, trauma and their mother and substance abuse and personality disorders. No, there's no cause. Abuse is a choice. And that is absolutely applicable here, right? I'm allowed to make mistakes. You are choosing to be abusive. You are choosing not to change your pattern. So here you are reacting like a normal person to the repetition of abuse, and that distinction is now gone. He doesn't want to talk about that, right? Mistakes, abuse, same to a man like that. Those are completely different things. Cheating is not a mistake. It's a choice you made. You might feel bad about it. You might not, but it was a choice in both cases. But what he's trying to do is frame it as a mistake so that your forgiveness becomes the expectation. And if you don't forgive him, you're unforgiving. You can't even accept the fact that he makes mistakes, like, ooh, he has flaws. Your standards are so high. Again, all of this shifts it back to you. You become the problem. And now you question if you're being too hard on him. And this one in particular works really well if he's trying, right? For the man that you've already threatened to leave and he's asked you to stay and he's maybe in therapy or reading books or trying to get better, if you are not tolerant of all of the mistakes that he makes along the way, you're the problem. Your standards are ridiculous. You expect change overnight? What are you, crazy? Oh, so I have to be perfect? It all comes back to the same message. Your reaction is the problem. And this is very common. This is very typical of what happens in abusive relationships. His behavior is not the topic. Your reaction is the topic. And this is prevalent specifically in relationships where the male is the perpetrator and the female is the victim. Not to say it can never be the reverse. Relax. I want you to notice that every phrase we covered, and I'm sure it is not an exhaustive list, it does the exact same thing. It moves the focus from what he did to how you're responding. So you go from naming harm to now defending your reaction, and it happens like that. And then it keeps happening. That's the pattern. That's the pattern I want you to step out of. This works so well on women because you don't want to be critical and unfair and too much and a nag. You want to be a good partner. We're all fighting against the tropes of the patriarchy. We all want to not be seen in these ways by someone that we love, someone that we care about. So when how you see yourself is challenged, you correct yourself and you soften and you reduce your expectations and you move away from the original issue just like he wanted you to. And that's why it keeps working. So what gets lost every single time is his actual behavior. We're focused on his intent, never the actual impact. Intent matters, sure. I would argue most of these men have bad intentions, but even regardless of that, bad intentions or not, the impact matters more. That is what you need to focus on. What is this costing you? Name the pattern. Why did you speak up to begin with? You don't resolve it. You just move away from it. That's what he wants, and that's why it repeats. The truth is, you're not asking for perfection. You are asking for change, but you're asking for him not to be abusive. More often than not, women are actually asking for basic human decency, basic accountability, a little bit of consistency, and none of those are what he's saying. His language turns all of what you're asking into something extreme so that he doesn't have to meet them. That's the function. You're not expecting too much. You are asking for something that he does not want to give because it benefits him not to. Subscribe if you're not already. And if you're ready to leave a man like this, join me inside the Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching Program or inside my one-on-one sessions. I also have a self-paced, inexpensive course called the Trauma Bond Recovery Course that you can join if you prefer something more self-paced as opposed to online one-on-one sessions. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.